Hi everyone, this is Delia. Welcome back to WoWexpressions. So glad that you took time out of your day to, enjoy our conversation. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you have any questions or any ideas that you would like us to have a conversation about, send us an email at 2020wowexpressions at gmail.com. So yeah, let's get into this week's conversation.
As we celebrate uh, this month of October is Autism Month, we want to look at differently able to an extent, and we also want to deal with ableism. As able persons, we sometimes are so caught up in our world and we fail to recognize that there are persons living with challenges and we don't pay attention enough to them. I recall some time ago, this gentleman came to me to get some business done, and he had this boy who might have been about 10 years that he was carrying on his shoulder. And very quickly, I recognized the boy was autistic. And the child started to scream like loud, and everybody in the mall looked around like, what's going on? And this gentleman who was carrying him, he described to me, he said, this is not my son, this is my girlfriend's son. He said, once I met this lady, I started to take care of this child, and it's a joy to do it. He's a football trainer, and he set his whole schedule around being able to take care of this child. And he said the child's father wanted to put him in a home, and he had to beg this man not to put his own child in a home, saying that he would provide care for this young man. And I thought at that very moment, how many of us will take on that responsibility? Because let's face it, ladies, that is an awesome responsibility to care for someone who has special needs.
And
The
not
demands,
He's like a superhero because number one, it's not his biological son, right?
exactly.
And yeah, that he just has a
And
reservoir.
while
Yeah,
he's there,
he definitely deserves a wow there
Yeah,
because,
yeah,
definitely.
and
yeah.
he was so
I
patient. Like
can't even imagine.
while he was there, the child and screaming, he had to pull out a bottle, a baby's bottle, to feed the child. And the child took the feeding for to an extent, and before you know it, he started to bring it up. And this guy he held him in place, and then I got the cleaner to come and clean it up. And at no point in time did this guy show any sign of, oh my God, this is too much for me. And I thought that was very,
Mhm.
very commendable.
Right. Because yeah, that is a lot. And taking care of people who are differently able, who present with different physical impediments, or who are neurodivergent in terms of they think differently. And yeah, it's a tough job. I know a few friends who have children who are on the spectrum, and it has been very difficult. I mean, I live in the US where there are some services that are provided, but it's been a battle. These caretakers, how they have to literally fight tooth and nail, just for the recognition and the humanity of their children, to be seen that they get the services that they need to operate in this world with dignity. And I
Yeah.
think people who give their life and love their children unabashedly, because I know, like, earlier, like in the 50s and in the 40s, when you had special needs children, a lot of them were put away, right?
And they were
Mhm.
ostracized.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. So to actually say, no, this is my child, because we live in a society that we like to hide stuff, right?
Yeah.
If things don't
Mm.
fit the particular frame and it's not perfect,
Yeah.
because when we have babies, if the first question is like, what, 10 fingers and 10
Ten,
toes?
ten, ten toes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
this illusion of perfectionism, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when dealing with people who present differently, that illusion is shattered. But what
Yeah.
it does, it forces us to open up ourselves to new ideas,
Mm-hmm.
and recognize that a lot of
Mhm.
things that we think are so okay, this is how it's supposed to be, and if it's not, recognizing that we can actually have new ways of seeing things,
Mm-hmm.
and especially
Yeah.
for people who are
Yeah.
different. Yeah.
It's really important also that we have a level of sensitivity when we speak of differently able people, not to the point where we talk to them like if you know, they're stupid or whatever, but there must be some level of sensitivity that you breed in your home, because your home eventually is a reflection of larger society.
Yeah.
And especially Trinidadians, especially, I personally find Trinidadians tend not to be politically correct. And we have to motivate others to try and be like that, so everybody will have a sense of encouragement and a sense of that they fit into the society. And also what I find is even caretakers need sensitivity training on how
Right.
they
Right.
speak to the individuals that they look after.
Right.
And
Mm.
yes, and to change the whole idea of flippant talk, you need to be more sensitive, and you need to be aware when they speak to you. Listen, because you a lot of time people speaking, you're listening, but you're not hearing what the people's needs are, and especially the differently able. You literally have to listen, make adjustments to structural adjustments, for example, wheelchair ramps,
Right.
or, you know, but besides making structural adjustments, you have to make an adjustment in yourself and how you deal with individuals, and trying to groom that level of sensitivity in yourself. And when somebody sees you treating others with sensitivity, it's literally a reflection. You might inspire that person
Exactly. That
to
whole
be as sensitive to
mirroring.
um how to put it, to research ways in which you can become
Interact
a
with
more
these persons.
sensitive person in
Yeah.
society, and therefore it's like a domino effect. People and society now becomes more sensitive because you're
Right. Because
seeing one
I
person
was
who gets
actually
sensitive.
I was actually reading something that says before you even assist someone who is differently able, that you have to ask their permission to
Exactly.
Correct.
touch them.
Yes.
You don't use, their wheelchairs or their canes or anything as a prop, as your
right.
personal prop. That's their property. And I suppose it speaks of respect,
Yeah.
Yes.
because I can't see anybody with any sort of respect doing something like that. You know what I
Yeah.
Correct.
mean? So I suppose it calls on human decency,
Yeah.
you know, that
No,
the
but
way we treat with people, not just differently able people on the
yeah.
whole,
Yeah.
and if you treat with people with respect, differently able will just fall into that category.
Yeah.
Not
Correct.
because something is because you can't see or you can't walk or you can't, doesn't mean that you're any different from me. You
Mm.
could do something that I can't.
In a
You know what I
different
mean?
way.
And Anna,
Yes.
to expand on something you said when you see someone with a disability, and okay, everybody wants to do a good deed. Some
Right.
people will rush up to them and think that they're doing a good deed, but they're not. They have to show that level of respect and ask them,
Mm-hmm.
how can I assist you? How is your day going? How can I help you? And because a lot of
Do
people,
you need help?
exactly, a lot of
Do
people
you
want to
need
help a
help?
little, but they don't know how to go about offering the help.
Yeah.
Mm.
But on the
Because
other
you
hand,
can't give me help and I don't want it. So you
Yeah.
have to ask
correct.
me if I need help.
Mhm. And
That
that is a
also shows
level
to
of
your level of respect
insensitivity.
as well.
That's a
Yeah.
level of insensitivity and disrespect to just rush up on someone and expect that,
Mm-hmm.
they know that you just come in to help them.
Yeah.
But on the topic of respect, ladies, I've witnessed a couple of times, well, in a restaurant where a family will be sitting at the table and they'll be in company with someone that is differently able. But the person has
Mm-hmm.
been trained, educated to go to a restaurant and to order their meals. And
Mhm.
the
Mm-hmm.
waitress will come up to the table and they will be speaking about that person who's differently able as if they're not even
That's
there.
right there.
Right.
So they will
Yeah.
start to say, what does he want?
What is-
And the person is right there. And I like many times that, well, a couple times I saw where the person themselves had to talk, like, this is
Mm-hmm.
what I want, and the person had to interact with the server, and then she recognizes, oh, he could actually have a conversation. So I mean, it's all about the respect. If you respect someone, while we should ask if they want help, and that's one way of looking at it. But another way is let's start interacting with them and see how well they can interact. As a matter of fact, I remember just the other day a guy came to me, and I know him in the mall from being very loud, very what I would call disrespectful. And he came, and I always say, I hope he never comes to my place. Lo and behold, just last week he came up to me, and he wanted to get some copies done. So he came and he put a document. Not no. I assume he was getting copies done, but he put his document on the counter and started to say what he wanted to. But I didn't understand him. But I was so prepared to deal with him as quickly as possible that I did what I thought he wanted. When I did it and I gave it to him, he said, no, no. And then he told me what he wanted very respectfully. And then he paid his money and he left. And I said to myself, every day is a learning experience. Because this guy, although he has his challenges, he can come, conduct his business, and leave in a respectable manner. So our role is always to be aware, how do we interact with persons that are differently able, and respect. That little word that goes a very long way. Respect everyone. So
Yeah,
Right.
Sharon, that's critical. Respect is really important. And we have to recognize that differently abled individuals, they function in a world that often doesn't really cater to their existence, right? It's only in the US where I live, where we have the Americans with Disabilities Act, which says that despite your ability or disability, you should have access to everything, right? And
Mhm.
still, there are a lot of places that are non-compliant, and this is the USA. I mean, just think
wow.
about going through your home, everything, the way the height of the cupboards, the way the bathroom is, all of these things
Mm,
are set in place for people who are so-called quote unquote normal. And the
mm,
difference with having you know a disability is that the older you get, the likelihood of needing some kind of assistance increases. So if we could
yeah,
normalize a society where people who have different strengths and different um, weaknesses per se can still be able to function. Like a lot of buildings have steps, right? And a lot of
Mhm.
people have issues with mobility, and especially as you
Yeah.
get older. So just thinking
mm,
of
Yeah.
how, as Nadine was saying, how society is structured, right? We must be inclusive as possible,
yeah,
include
Mhm.
as many people, so that, because the thing about it, your ability or disability, it doesn't take away from your humanity,
yeah,
the
Yeah.
Exactly.
greatness
Exactly.
that is
Yeah.
inside of you.
Something you said there, Delia. I remember when we were doing the constructions on the house, the renovation on the house,
Uh-huh.
the contractor actually said, "Listen, you all getting older. You all can't wouldn't be able to climb steps all the time. Make a room, an extra room,
downstairs.
so that when you all get to that age when you could no longer climb the stairs, that you all could a bedroom, And I thought it was like, what is he talking about,
Mhm.
Right.
And after a while it became so clear and true. You
Yeah,
take it for granted that you
yeah,
would always be able to climb your stairs.
right,
We take so much for granted,
yeah,
and we do not plan. And I
yeah,
suppose the same way we take ourselves for granted, we're not even paying attention to these people who are disabled and
mm,
differently abled,
mm,
you know?
mm,
So that is the sense. We have to be sensitive to what other people
others.
need, you
And
know?
on that note, Anna, it leads me to think, remember, there are people who are born with disabilities. What about the people who had an accident
I was just gonna
or,
say that. Yeah.
and they became disabled? You have to use
Exactly.
a completely different method of dealing
Mm-hmm.
with them
Yeah.
compared to somebody who was born with a disability. And that will also be under some level of training, sensitivity. Somebody who actually does it for a living would obviously be trained in those particular areas to have how to deal with someone who was born that way or how to deal with somebody who just became disabled. And I really think society as a whole, okay, we need to be sensitive about it, but I think it's a wholly different type of sensitivity you will use. I don't know. That's just my,
Yeah, because
what do
that
you
that
think?
person has that additional emotional, the trauma of that
Exactly.
event
Yeah.
that went
Yes.
through, just like
Yeah.
recognizing and
PTSD.
who they were before
Also.
to what they can do now, and just dealing with that, right?
Mhm.
Life, when you have, everything is difficult,
Yes.
right? And the ability to overcome is going to be tested, right?
Yes.
It's really going to be tested. So someone in that kind of situation, you have to be really be respectful and mindful, and be careful. And as you were saying, Anna, in terms of, what was it, Nadine, the conversations that we have as Trinidadians, and so many things as Pekong, and we say these
Mhm.
things, blah 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 blah,
Yeah.
have to become aware and sensitive to the people who are around us, because if our role is, if our goal is to create a society where everyone feels like they're included, if our
Yes.
fault as a country, right, is Pekong and thing, and where we make people who are differently able feel not included, that's something
Mhm.
to look into, and we could probably
Yeah.
set it in our own way. I mean, even our conversation today on this topic, this is not a topic that um people would think that
You
we
have
would,
a lot of knowledge on.
exactly, right, but we just want to bring awareness to the fact that there are people out there who are differently abled, as we said, who they think differently, they might look physically similar to us, but they are neurodivergent. A lot of people on the autism spectrum are like that, right? And we have to recognize and appreciate their differences. And we got something to say, Sharon.
No, basically, they didn't cover what I was gonna say. I was just thinking on on a whole. You think back of your childhood days, and I remember persons that were left-handed. You
Yeah.
made them to feel as if they were something was wrong with them, like they had a disability, and not understanding that it is normal for them. What we look at as abnormal, for them, it is normal because that's how they're born that way and they function that way. So it's not a this how the way we look at them is not the way they are looking at themselves. They realize this is my situation and I learned to live with it. I remember this girl, I don't know if you guys could remember, there was this girl who was born without arms.
Hmm.
And
Yes.
she went,
She became a lawyer.
yes, and she's a brilliant attorney at law, and she's living her life. And parents, when you have children that you discover at an early age that something is different with them,
Mhm.
you treat them as normal as you can, but you prepare them for life because they're
Yeah.
gonna grow up. I know of someone who was a special needs child, and that child was not prepared for life. So the
Mhm.
child is a grown young woman, and she's so not prepared for life. And we have to remember chances are we may pass on before that child, the adult, the parent may pass on before that child. How are we preparing that child for life, for society? What plans are we putting in place? If something should happen to me and the child is still young, what do I put in place for that child's
Yeah.
future?
Mhm.
What kind of caregiving will be available based on the economical
Severity.
aspect of it?
Yeah,
So
and the
just be,
severity of
just
the disability as well, you
say
know,
again.
and the severity of the disability. Because
Correct.
if it's some person who needs constant monitoring, right?
Mhm.
Who is going to pay for those things? I mean,
Yes.
these are serious considerations that again, caretakers have to deal with the physical care of the person or the child, or if it's
Mhm.
an elderly adult, a parent, right? The physical care of the person, and also the
Yeah.
financial burden of
Yes.
the care. I think a wheelchair is so expensive in Trinidad, and
Yeah.
a lot of older people need it. And because it's not something that the government gives out, so it's, if they do, it's pretty difficult. A lot of people cannot function and retain some dignity because they don't have the tools, right? So it's a really complex issue. And I think while we cannot solve the problem, right? I think what we said in terms of being sensitive, being respectful, right?
And being
And
aware, paying attention to the people around you, because you mightn't see that I'm disabled. I mightn't look disabled. I
Correct.
mightn't, but you don't know if I'm hearing properly. You don't know if I'm seeing well. You don't know. So you have to pay attention.
Yeah, that reminds me of a Trini joke from years ago when somebody said, what happened, you deaf hour? And the person
Yeah,
was wrong with the
Hearing
yeah,
aid.
your hearing,
yeah.
and it was like, I
Yeah.
actually am,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really critical that you
That
know,
we be aware. And not only that, as we get old, as you rightly said, Anna, we are all young and able-bodied now, but we don't know what's ahead for any of us. We know
Yeah.
who we are today, but we do not know who we will become. So it would be
Mm-hmm.
sensitive of us to be the type of individuals that when our time comes, if it comes that way, that persons will be kind to us because we would have sown that seed before time.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's really critical. Alrighty then. So I think, we have delved into this topic of people who are differently abled. And I think hopefully we have, given you guys something to think about. And I think even though it's specifically about people who are differently able, it really falls under the broad umbrella of how you are showing up in life. If you're
Yeah.
living under the golden rule of treat others like you want to be treated, it won't even matter if the person,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
could see it, or have an ability, have a disability. It doesn't matter because you connect to the humanity in the
Yes.
person,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And you give that person an opportunity to live their best life by respecting them, right?
That was well said, Delia. Well said.
All right,
Yes.
guys, I think that's it for this week. So yeah,
Okay.
see you guys
Bye.
next time. Have a great
Bye.
Bye.
time. Bye. Shan, thank you for bringing it. It was out of our comfort